Hello and welcome to Epiphytic Cacti. Today I figured I would go over a little bit how I water some of these plants indoors because I feel like indoor watering can actually be a little bit tricky. I do this in a bucket like this with a water pump and everything just because I have so many plants. So one of the things that I want to demonstrate is the pH of the water and how that can affect your plants. So here I have a pH meter, and this is straight out of the tap indoors. And what will happen here is the pH tester, I will just put this in and then I will check the reading and it will give me the pH reading of the water. These are really inexpensive meters and it's a really good way to make sure that, you're really kind of giving your plants kind of what they need. So let me just take a reading. So what we can see is that the reading that actually came out on this meter was about 7.5. Now, if I didn't already have some water in this bucket already had a little bit of water in it, the water had already been pH adjusted, and if that wasn't the case, this pH meter would have had a reading of about 8. And what that is extremely alkaline water. So let me kind of explain for a second here what will happen in that kind of scenario. Epiphytic cacti, just in general, they like a mildly acidic growing media. There is a difference between mildly acidic and acidic. So I go through this whole process to basically get the right kind of bark, the right kind of potting soil, everything else that's put in my mix to make sure that it is all slightly acidic. It's got our reading somewhere around like 5.5. And then I turn around and I just water with water that's straight out of the tap that actually is alkaline. So if it's got an 8.0 reading, I am actually just changing the pH in general for my plants. So I'm not even really treating them like they're slightly acidic anymore because the pH of the water affects what the actual pH would be of the media that it's sitting in when you water, if that makes sense. So you want to be really careful that you don't go through all that kind of work and then do something, water it right out of the tap like this without ever knowing what the pH is of your water. In the United States, where tap water is definitely treated, it's probably going to be more alkaline. And so that's why I think you hear a lot of the things, beyond the fact that we have all kinds of crazy chemicals in our water because it's treated, with like fluoride and all kinds of crazy stuff. But, just outside of that kind of scenario, the difference there is that like when a lot of people say, oh, well, you should really be watering with like rainwater, or collecting snow or whatever, what have you. And one of the reasons why, and this is key, is because the pH of your rainwater is around 5.5. So what to do if you only have access to tap water like this? What to do is to actually get something kind of like this, which it's a General Hydroponic pH control kit. So you can get something kind of like this, and then you can get one of these little meters. Now, what I'm going to do here is I'm going to open this little guy up, the little pH control kit. The kit just came right off of Amazon. They aren't really all that expensive, but you do have to be a little bit careful. And a word of caution about this is you do not want to get any of this stuff in your eyes, in your mouth, on your skin, anything like that. So this little hydroponic kit, it comes with a little test indicator thing if you don't have a meter, and it actually measures, it says so on here, it measures the spectrum from 4 to 8.5. So you can find these charts online, right? And so here you can see from about 4 to 5, you're looking at something that is generally would be considered something like acidic. 5.5 to 6.5, you would be looking at something particularly around 5.5. You're getting into something that is considered slightly acidic. And then you move into neutral, and then you move into basic, which over here, you know, this is really alkaline. And what you see here is actually nutrients. So you see plant nutrients on this chart. And here's the general thing. And I know that this gets a little bit nerdy, but it's something that's just kind of important just in general. It's not necessarily that it needs to be like that in depth, but the general understanding of why we want to keep, and it even says it on the package. Ideal pH for plant growth is about 5.5 to 6.5. That's not true for all plants because there are some plants like azaleas, blueberries, which are truly acidic loving plants. So that's a little bit different. Here, we're looking at something that is just slightly acidic. So what I want you to see here is that when these ribbons that they have on this chart, when they're at their whitest, that would be the maximum intake that a plant could have. So one of the reasons why you get into something like this is if you look at these ribbons, you can see that it is actually an ideal place where your plant can actually uptake all of the nutrients. That's one of the main reasons why you try to get that pH between 5.5 and 6.0. Because you're getting your nitrogen, your phosphorus, your potassium, sulfur, calcium, magnesium, iron, manganese, boron, copper, and zinc. And I don't even know what that last one is. That's really just the key to understanding, I think, when everybody runs around and talks all about pH and all of that stuff, you know, like what's really going on with that and why people even say it. Because without context, it's just kind of like, I don't understand what that means. So there you go. So it says the best pH for plant growth is generally in the range of 5.5 to 6.5, slightly acidic. Just in terms of these two different things here, we've got pH up and pH down. Now, pH up makes the water more alkaline, and pH down makes it more acidic. So you can see you've got your base and you've got your acid. And so what you want to do is actually use the acid, in my case, because the pH of my water is on the more alkaline side, and I want to get that reading in between 5.5 and 6.0. Now, every once in a while, I will actually shift my pH. Not often, I don't do it very often, but every once in a while, I will make my pH a little bit closer to 5, and every once in a while, I'll make it a little bit closer to 7. Goes back to, again, this sort of scale, right? Because in different areas, like maybe I'm really trying to get like a little bit more of those nutrients every once in a while and a little bit more of those nutrients every once in a while. That's all. It's not an extreme kind of thing. Just every once in a while, I'll just shift the pH and water once like that, just a little bit. So you've got this little dropper thing that was included here. All I'm really going to do is just pick up just a tiny bit of this. I mean, like, you can see I just have a teeny tiny bit in there. I'm just going to take, like that, couple of drops there. Rinse the little squeegee dude out. Close this guy up. Now, it is very important that when you do that, that you actually mix your water before you take a reading. You definitely don't want to get it in there and take a reading at kind of like a weird spot, you know, where you just put the solution, your reading will be like way off. So you definitely want to get in there and kind of mix that stuff up. Most of the time when I'm not on camera, because I know the resting pH of my water in general, so most of the time I actually put the pH down in there before I put the water in. But for camera purposes, got a little differently. So we'll turn our meter back on, and then we'll check this again and see where we're at. So it looks like we are at about just a little above 6. So I'm actually going to put a little bit more in there. But you can see, you know, generally just how far this stuff goes, really. It's not... a little tiny bit of the stuff goes a long, long way. There we go. Stir it up. The pH scale is actually a logarithmic scale. So So just to kind of be aware of that, I mean, like a little tiny shift is actually really huge. There we go. Let's check it again. There we go. Now we are just like spot on. So we're at 5.6. And that is perfect. Thank you for watching, and happy cacti growing.